Have you ever wondered what would happen if a missile could move so fast and change direction so quickly that no more country on Earth could stop it? Think about that for a moment. A weapon so fast that you cannot see it coming. A weapon so smart that radar cannot follow it. A weapon so deadly that one hit can change the future of a whole nation. This is not science fiction. This is not a future dream. This is happening right now. And today, we are going to explore how hypersonic missiles may reshape the next global war. But before we begin, here is a small reward for staying till the end. If you watch this full video, you will walk away with a clear understanding of how these weapons work, why countries fear them, and how they can transform the balance of power in the world. By the last minute of this video, you will be ahead of 99% of people who have no more idea how close we are to a new kind of conflict. So let us start with a simple question. What makes hypersonic missiles so different from every missile you already know? You may already know about ballistic missiles. They launch high into the sky. They travel on a predictable path. Once they go up, they come down in a curve that we can track. That is why many countries have anti-missile systems. These systems try to predict the path of the missile and shoot it down before it hits its target. But hypersonic missiles do not play by these rules. A hypersonic missile travels at more than 5 times the speed of sound. Some can reach 20 times the speed of sound. That is so fast that you could travel from New York to Los Angeles in a few minutes at that speed. But speed is only part of the story. The real danger is that a hypersonic missile can change its path while flying at this extreme speed. It can turn, it can glide, it can drop lower, it can climb again. It does not move like a normal missile. It moves like a smart, fast aircraft that refuses to fly in a straight line. Why does this matter? Because every modern defense system is built on prediction. Radars track objects and guess where they will be in the next second, the next minute, or the next few minutes. But imagine trying to predict the path of something that moves faster than your system can calculate. Imagine chasing a weapon that changes direction before your radar even updates. It is like trying to catch a fly, but the fly moves at the speed of a fighter jet. This is why hypersonic missiles are almost impossible to stop. But let's take a moment and step back. How did we get here? Why are countries now focusing on these extremely fast weapons? The answer is fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of becoming weak. Fear of being slow in a world that is getting faster every single year. Hypersonic technology has become a race. A race between the world's strongest militaries. A race where speed is power. A race where the winner gets a huge advantage in future wars. To understand why, picture this. Traditional missiles, even advanced ones, give a country some time to react. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 20 minutes. Sometimes even an hour. That reaction time lets leaders make choices. They can move jets. They can launch defenses. They can warn cities. They can even respond with their own weapons. But a hypersonic missile cuts this time down to minutes or even seconds. In some cases, by the time a country realizes it has been targeted, the missile is already close to impact. This makes hypersonics not just a weapon, but a tool that shapes decision-making. When leaders have no more time to think, the risk of mistakes grows. The risk of panic grows. This is why military experts worry. A hypersonic strike might trigger a fast response. A fast response can lead to a chain reaction. A chain reaction can start a global conflict. But what makes these missiles even more dangerous is their low flight path. When hypersonic missiles fly close to the atmosphere, they travel lower than a ballistic missile, but higher than a jet. This zone is difficult to track. Radar systems are not designed to follow something that moves this fast at this altitude. This means a hypersonic missile can hide from defenses for most of its flight. By the time it shows up, it is too late. Now you may wonder, if these missiles are so powerful, why don't we hear about them every day? The truth is, hypersonic technology is still new. Many countries thought about it, but only a few can build it, and even fewer can test it. But the ones who can are changing the future of war. Imagine a weapon that can reach any point on the planet in minutes. Imagine a weapon that can take out aircraft carriers before they even launch their planes. Imagine a weapon that can hit a command center before the enemy knows a strike is coming. This is why hypersonics are becoming the new center of global power. Whoever controls this technology will control the new battlefield. But here is the part most people do not know. Hypersonic missiles are not only fast. They are smart. They can be guided. They can be programmed to pick the most unpredictable path. Some hypersonic systems glide in the air like a stone skipping across water. Others use special engines called scramjets that work only at extreme speeds. These engines suck in air at hypersonic speed and burn fuel in a way that creates even more speed. Every part of the missile is designed for motion, heat, and the pressure beyond what any normal weapon can handle. So now you might ask, why are we talking about all this today? Because the world is changing faster than we think. Wars of the past were slow. Wars of today are fast. Wars of tomorrow may be instant. A single hypersonic strike can change the course of a conflict in seconds. And as more countries build these weapons, the world becomes a more dangerous place. But before we move on, remember this, the real story is not just about the missiles. It is about what they mean. They mean that no more country is safe. They mean that our defense systems may no more longer work. They mean that the balance of power can shift overnight. And this is only the beginning. In the next section, we will look at the global arms race. We will explore who leads this technology, who is catching up, and what this race means for the future of global conflict. Stay with me, because the next part will show you how the world's strongest militaries are fighting a silent war for speed and control. When you hear the phrase global arms race, you might think of the Cold War. You might imagine two superpowers building more bombs, more missiles, and more weapons in a silent battle for dominance. But the world is no more longer in a simple two-country race. Today, the new arms race involves multiple nations, each fighting for the fastest and the most advanced weapon on Earth. And the center of this new race is the hypersonic missile. So, let me ask you a question. Who do you think is winning this race right now? The United States, Russia, China, or is it someone else? The truth may surprise you, because each of these nations leads in a different part of the technology, and each one sees hypersonic weapons as the key to future power. Let's start with Russia. Russia was one of the first countries to test and deploy hypersonic weapons. They developed a weapon called the Avangard. It is a hypersonic glide vehicle that launches on top of a rocket and then glides toward its target at extreme speeds. Russia also tested the Kinzhal, an air-launched hypersonic missile. They showed it off in video and speeches. They claimed it could hit targets faster than anything the West could stop. Whether or not all those claims are true, one thing is clear: Russia used hypersonics as a message to the world. The message was simple: we have something new, something fast, something you cannot defend against. The answer is China. China's rise in hypersonic technology has perhaps shocked the global military community the most. They created the DFZF, a hypersonic glide vehicle that can travel long distances and strike with high precision. But what truly grabbed attention was China's test of a hypersonic missile that flew around the Earth before heading toward its target. Even US defense officials admitted that the test was a Sputnik moment, a reference to the Shaktau-S fault when the Soviet Union launched the first satellite into space in 1957. China's goal is clear: to challenge American military power in Asia and around the world. Now let's talk about the United States. Man, people think the US is behind in this race, but that is not fully true. The US has some of the best scientists, engineers, and the military technologies in the world. For years, America focused on perfecting defense systems rather than building new offensive hypersonic weapons. But as Russia and China advanced, the US changed course. They began investing billions of dollars into hypersonic research, including air-breathing hypersonic missiles, glide vehicles, and the advanced engines. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and the Northrop Grumman are now working around the clock to create new weapons that can match or beat Russia and China. However, building hypersonic missiles is not like building airplanes or rockets. It is far harder. The materials must survive extreme heat. The guidance systems must work even at speeds where air turns into plasma. And the engines must operate in conditions that no more other engine can handle. This is why countries are spending so much money. They know that whoever masters hypersonics will hold a major advantage in the next war. But the race goes beyond just these three countries. India is working on its own hypersonic technology. They tested a scramjet engine and are developing missiles that can fly faster than Mach 6. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom are also researching hypersonics, though on a smaller scale. Japan is planning no hypersonic glide vehicles to strengthen its defenses in East Asia. Even smaller countries, like Australia, are joining hands with the US to develop hypersonic systems through alliances like AUKUS. The world is not just building weapons. The world is building networks, allies, and the partnerships around hypersonic technology. This is what makes the race so intense. It is not only about speed, it is about power, influence, and the control of the future battlefield. Now, let's look deeper at why nations are taking this race so seriously. The reason is simple: hypersonic missiles change everything. They change how countries plan their defenses. They change how armies move. They change how navies position their ships. They even change the meaning of borders. When a missile can cross a continent in minutes, no more place is truly safe. No more city, no more base, no more military ship can hide forever. A hypersonic weapon also challenges one of the oldest rules of war, the rule of time. For hundreds of years, war required preparation. Troops had to move, tanks had to roll, ships had to sail, planes had to take off. But hypersonics break this rule. They can strike before the enemy even knows the war has begun. This gives nations with hypersonic weapons the power to deliver a first strike that is fast, unexpected, and almost impossible to defend. But here is something most people do not realize. Hypersonic missiles do not only give power, they also create fear. When rival countries see others developing these weapons, they feel pressure to create their own. They worry about being left behind. They worry that if they do nothing, they will be vulnerable. This fear pushes countries to invest more and more money into new technologies. Soon, the race becomes a cycle. One country builds, another responds. Then the first country builds something faster, and the cycle continues. This is why the world is entering a new kind of Cold War. Not one of ideology, not one of nuclear threats alone, but one of speed. A Cold War built on the idea that faster is stronger, and the stronger is safer. But here's the truth: this race is dangerous. When countries compete at such high levels, mistakes can happen. Misunderstandings can happen. One test can be mistaken for an attack. One military move can trigger fear in another nation. If the world is not careful, the hypersonic race could lead to tension and conflict. But it is not all negative. Some experts believe that hypersonic weapons could actually prevent war. They argue that when all major nations have these weapons, no more one will risk starting a war because the response would be instant and devastating. In this view, hypersonics create a balance of fear, similar to nuclear weapons. Still, hypersonics are not nuclear bombs. They are faster, more precise, and more flexible. They can hit targets that nuclear bombs cannot. And they can start conflicts before leaders have time to understand what is happening. This is why military leaders are unsure about the long-term impact of the hypersonic arms race. So now you may ask, where is this race heading? The answer is toward more speed, more power, and more advanced technology. The world's strongest militaries are preparing for a future where hypersonic weapons are common. They are testing new materials, new engines, new guidance systems, and even new space-based sensors. The next stage of the race will not only be about missiles. It will be about the systems that detect them, the defenses that try to stop them, and the strategies that nations use to protect themselves. In the next section, we will break down how hypersonic missiles actually work. You will learn what happens from the moment they launch to the moment they hit their target. You will see why they are so fast, why they are so hard to detect, and why they are so dangerous. Have you ever wondered what really happens inside a weapon that moves 5, 10, or even 20 times faster than sound? How does something stay stable at such extreme speeds? How does it survive the heat, the pressure, and the force of pushing through the air like a fireball? And how does it still manage to change direction, avoid radar, and hit a target with shocking accuracy? To answer these questions, we must step inside the world of hypersonic flight. This is the place where physics, engineering, and the military strategy come together. And yet is the place where the future of war is being shaped right now. Let's start simple. A hypersonic missile is any missile that can travel at Mach 5 or faster. That means 5 times the speed of sound. Sound travels at about 761 miles per hour. So Mach 5 is around 3,8 miles per hour. But hypersonic missiles go far beyond that. Some reach Mach 10, Mach 15, even Mach 20. At this speed, you could fly from New York to London in less than 30 minutes. That is how fast we are talking. But speed alone does not make a missile hypersonic. Traditional ballistic missiles also reach extreme speeds when they fall back toward us. The difference is control. A ballistic missile follows a predictable ARC, like a thrown ball. Once it is launched, it cannot change direction. Hypersonic missiles can. Hypersonic missiles can maneuver in midair at extreme speeds, and this is what makes them so deadly. They do not follow a simple curve. They glide, they turn, they dip, they rise, and they twist through the atmosphere. It is this combination of speed and control that makes them almost impossible to stop. To understand how they do this, let's look at the two main types of hypersonic weapons: hypersonic glide vehicles (HGVs), hypersonic cruise missiles (HCMS). Both are hypersonic weapons, but they work very differently. Pertama, hypersonic glide vehicles (HGVs). Let's begin with the hypersonic glide vehicle. Think of an HGV like a super-fast space glider. It starts with a rocket. The rocket launches the glide vehicle into the upper atmosphere, sometimes near the edge of space. When it reaches a certain height and speed, the glide vehicle separates from the rocket. Now the real magic begins. The glide vehicle then speeds forward, leading the thin air at the edge of the atmosphere. It does not follow a straight line. It does not follow a curve. Instead, it glides and maneuvers, moving unpredictably as it heads toward its target. This unpredictability is a nightmare for radar systems. Every time the glide vehicle changes direction, radars lose track of it for precious seconds. And in a hypersonic strike, seconds are everything. HGVs are extremely difficult to detect because they fly at lower altitudes than ballistic missiles. They also move too fast for manned radar systems to adjust. And since they do not follow a known path, no more computer can accurately predict where they will be next. But to glide at these speeds, an HGV needs special materials. The body gets hotter than the surface of a rocket. The air around it becomes plasma. Plasma can even block radar waves, making the missile invisible for parts of its flight. Engineers must design the vehicle to survive this heat, stay stable, and still respond to guidance commands. That is why building an HGV is one of the hardest engineering challenges on Earth. Kedua, hypersonic cruise missiles (HCMS). Now let's look at the second type, the hypersonic cruise missile. An HCM uses a special engine called a scramjet. You can think of a scramjet as a supercharger for air. Normal jet engines slow the air down before burning fuel, but a scramjet does the opposite. It burns fuel while the air rushes through the engine at hypersonic speed. It only works at extreme speeds, so the missile usually needs a rocket booster to get it up to Mach 4 or Mach 5. Once it reaches that speed, the scramjet kicks in. When the scramjet is active, the missile becomes a powered, guided hypersonic weapon that can fly at low altitudes, hug the terrain, and maneuver all the way to its target. Because it flies lower than an HGV, it stays below manned radar systems until the final moments. That means defenders may only have seconds to react. Hypersonic cruise missiles are like ultra-fast fighter jets without a pilot. They can adjust their direction during flight. They can avoid mountains, fly through valleys, and slip under radar coverage. And because they are powered throughout the flight, they maintain high speed all the way to the target. How hypersonics avoid radar and detection? You might wonder how something moving so fast can stay hidden. The answer is in physics. At hypersonic speeds, the air around the missile becomes extremely hot. It forms a glowing layer of ionized gas called plasma. Plasma can block radio waves. Since radar uses radio waves, parts of the missile's flight become difficult or impossible to detect. But that is not all. Hypersonic missiles fly in the gray zone between space and the lower atmosphere. This area is hard to monitor because manned radar systems are designed either for high-altitude objects or low-altitude ones. Hypersonics stay in the middle, slipping through the gaps. And even when radars do detect them, the missile is often too fast for defense systems to respond. Most anti-missile systems rely on predicting where the missile will be. But if the missile keeps changing direction, prediction becomes impossible. The defense system ends up chasing a ghost. Low note impact. What actually happens? Let's walk through the entire flight path of a typical hypersonic weapon, step by step. Step 1. Launch. Every hypersonic missile begins with a massive burst of energy, usually from a rocket booster. The booster pushes the missile up to hypersonic speed. Step 2. Separation or ignition for glide vehicles. the rocket releases the glider. For cruise missiles, the scramjet engine ignites. Step 3. Hypersonic flight. The missile now moves at Mach 5 or faster. Heat builds, air pressure rises, plasma forms. The missile rides this extreme environment like a surfer riding a wave. Step 4. Maneuvering. This is the key part. The missile adjusts its path again and again. These quick movements confuse radars and make interception almost impossible. Step 5. Terminal approach. In the final seconds, the missile locks onto its target. At this stage, even if defenders detect it, it is already too close. Step 6. Impact. A hypersonic strike delivers massive energy. Even without explosives, the speed alone can create devastating force. Why hypersonics are a strategic game changer? Now that we understand how they work, the reason they matter becomes clearer. Hypersonic missiles erase warning time. They erase predictability. They erase the safety of distance. They make the world smaller, faster, and more dangerous. A country across the ocean can now be hit in minutes. A base that once felt safe now feels exposed. A leader who once had time to think may now have only seconds. This is why hypersonics are more than weapons. They are tools of pressure, fear, and the global strategy. They change how nations act. They change how generals plan. They change how wars might start. In the next section, we will explore how hypersonic missiles threaten modern militaries. We will see how they put